views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Coming up, every president has promised immigration reform. The question is, the immigration debate has been at times some of the most divisive issues in Washington, but could we actually get immigration reform in the coming months? And if so, what cost? And what would it look like for the over 800,000 people of DACA? BronxWorks immigration attorney joins us on studio. We'll take you on perspectives right now.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
Express what's on your mind. What's on your mind?
Let 'em know. Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective with shines of light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life.
Make a difference.
What's your perspective?
Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
What's your perspective? Someone else's life.
In his first State of the Union address, President Donald Trump officially outlined his four-point immigration plan. Now, some Democrats call it racist. Other Republicans call it amnesty for illegal immigrants. But will Washington ever find a compromise? And as for DACA recipients, their lives and the future hangs in the balance as Washington plays their politics. Joining me now is attorney and supervising attorney of BronxWorks Immigration Program, Mr. Arturo Lopez, and he helps us to break down this very important discussion. And good to have you here on Perspectives.
Thank you for having me again.
Hey, good to have you back. So the president gives a State of the Union address, and obviously immigration is one of the things that everybody's paying attention to. As you looked yesterday, or I should say, as you looked yesterday and took a look at the speech, give us a little bit of your thoughts. Was immigration a little bit more clearer, or was it a little bit more cloudy?
Well, I have to say, I don't know that he's made much of a compromise, as it was supposed to be the theme of his message. According to him, he's always been in support of DACA. Other than that, he hasn't really given much in the things he wants. He still wants these border wall, border protection. He wants to cut down on what are supposed to be protections for children, which he calls loopholes. So I wouldn't say it's 100% clear.
Right. No. Of course, you have some people who said that the president's his whole proposal was racist. Let's walk through a little bit about this here, because one of the things that I think really got a lot of people's attention was the visa lottery.
Yes.
So let's walk through, for somebody who doesn't know what the visa lottery proposal is, what exactly is it proposing to do?
It is really just what it's called. It's a lottery. It's open to the world. It's held every year, and what you win is a green card if you qualify to enter. First of all, there's a certain number of green cards per country across the world, dependent upon past representation of those countries. There's a little more given to some countries because they're trying to make up for past discrimination. And then if you win, and it's still not a very large number, if you win after you go through the background checks and meet the education requirements, if you were approved after all that, then you're approved to enter the United States. So it's not some sort of just open door that circumvents security protocols and allows just anyone to get in and is just something that's easily taken advantage of by terrorists.
Well, you got a lot of people saying, the countries have the opportunity to vie for this, this lottery. You got some who say, listen, it's not fair. When you talk about Africa,
right.
there's some controversy there. Break that down.
Well, it is. Each country is supposed to have a certain amount of green cards that they'll receive. So it's a lottery, but then it's subdivided. Africa, however, which I'm sure everyone knows is a continent made up of many countries, unlike other countries, Africa competes as a whole for the, I believe, 30 green cards that it's allotted to Africa. So, you know, it's there again. Some would say that maybe they're not being treated or represented in a proper manner.
And so when you talk about Africa, obviously a lot of people still talking about the whole controversy surrounding the visa lottery. We here, of course, on Perspectives will continue to bring you the latest when it comes to that. I want to walk a little bit further into this innocent children.
Right.
Because he talked about and made reference to innocent children yesterday, but some people feel as though the innocent children are really becoming victims.
Right. Well, he called the protection for unaccompanied minors, children who are coming from impoverished countries, war-torn countries, children who have made it to the borders by themselves, do receive a little bit more of a critical review, a little more is taken into account. They have certain protections for unaccompanied minors. He'd referred to them as loopholes because one particular individual who committed a crime entered through that system. You know, so it's a little bit of I think the old phrase is curing the patient by burning down the hospital.
And a lot of people still have questions and comments to say with regards to that. When you looked at the speech yesterday, obviously you're an immigration attorney. Does it sound like your job's going to be a little bit more complex?
Most likely. Who knows? Who knows where it's going to go? Of course, we would be happy if there was a path towards citizenship created for DACA recipients. It's something that's not new. It's been proposed since the Obama administration. So it's hopefully that's one good thing that will come about, and we're looking forward to that. But again, you shouldn't trade off protections for many other people to benefit a few, and he's sort of distracting you from his overall effect by pointing out to the possibility of providing a path to citizenship for DACA recipients.
Now, I talked to some people watching the president's speech and said that, you know, it was there's some positives that come out by way of immigration. Do you see any positive lights that we can kind of look to?
Well, the most positive topic would be the pathway to citizenship for DACA recipients, but other than that, there weren't really any specific positives mentioned for any other groups, so I couldn't outline any other ones.
I know. Arturo Lopez, our guest in the studio. Stay with us. We got more perspectives coming up after this as we talk about immigration. Talk about it on a local level. What are people here facing, and what are a lot of things that this office has to deal with? We'll find out about that when we return right after this.
To the table, whether you make it move solo or a movement with a stable.
And I can't change, even if I try, even if I wanted to. My love, she keeps me warm. 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 She keeps me warm.
We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Love is kind. Love is patient.
Arturo Lopez, our guest in studio. We are going over the President's State of the Union address as he dealt with the issue of immigration. Now, a lot of stuff still remains unclear to this very present day. A lot of questions about visas and the visa application, the visa lottery, I should say, the visa application process. Some countries that are still in limbo and still we're trying to figure this out. But Arturo's doing a good job of helping sort some of this out for us here. But for somebody who's watching right now and asking the question, where does DACA stand? Where are we now?
Sure. Well, I'll just go back for a moment.
Sure.
DACA was implemented by, it was an executive order implemented by President Obama, which was to qualify. First of all, you had to have entered the United States before the age of 16. So we're talking about people that were here since they were children, very young children. There were some attempts to bring lawsuits to end DACA, which failed. Now we come to Trump, who ended DACA because it was an executive order and he felt he had the authority to. There was a challenge brought to that, and it went to federal court. The challenge was that he was not ending it because he felt that it was in violation of the law or that the previous president overextended his powers. There was a feeling that he was ending it for purely political reasons, that he was manipulating the situation, that he was treating this group unfairly and capriciously. And the judge issued an injunction to his ending DACA because he felt that there was the possibility that argument would win. So that brings us to right now. The injunction is still in place. So technically, if you have DACA, I should say it's a limited injunction. If you have DACA, you are eligible to renew. So I would say to anyone that has DACA, they should visit one of the many non-for-profits here in New York City and just get an update on their situation, get their status reviewed, see if they're qualified to reapply because they may be eligible to have DACA for another 2 years.
And so for people who want to do that, that's what you do at BronxWorks. Give
Yes.
a little bit of information as what do you do? And for those who just joined us, Arturo Lopez, our guest in the studio, supervising attorney over at BronxWorks dealing with immigration.
Sure. Well, BronxWorks helps with many issues. As you know, we have several offices throughout the Bronx. We help with many issues in the community. I'm the supervising attorney for the Immigration Department. We provide free legal assistance. We focus on issues like applying for DACA, applying for citizenship, if you qualify for the adjustment of status, which can bring a person who is out of a legal status into legal status within the United States. And so we can provide free assistance with these issues, free consultations, and so I would say it's a trustworthy source. You should, if you're seeking assistance, your first go-to should be one of the many non-for-profits in New York City, as opposed to some there are people out there that do take advantage of the immigrants in New York City, notarials who are not actually licensed, some attorneys who are not trustworthy. So I would say, come to a non-for-profit first. Try to get some good, solid advice as to where you stand, and then decide where you want to proceed from there.
What do you see coming through your door mostly these days?
A lot of citizenship, because since Trump took office, even people who are in legal status, who have never had any issues with arrests, criminal convictions, who entered legally, feel afraid. They feel afraid because they don't know where this president is going to go.
Mm-hmm. And so for you, of course, obviously the doors are open and people can take advantage of the immigration services that are there located at BronxWorks.
Yes.
Citizenship. So where do we stand with that right now? If somebody's watching and saying, listen, I want to become a citizen, given the fact of all that's going on today, how does that happen?
It's actually a bit of a long process now. Since Trump took office, the processing times have gone from 6 months to about a year. And there's a sort of thorough review, and which is why you should speak to an attorney first, because they want to make sure that the person hasn't had any arrest, hasn't been absent from the United States too long. But also there's this English and history and civics exam that a person has to prepare for, because they have to demonstrate knowledge on these topics. And for people in our community who maybe don't have all the benefits, that didn't grow up with all the benefits that we have here in the United States and came here later on, this can be a really difficult process. So they should really try to reach out and get some guidance on it.
And you talked about that difficult process. Talk about the patience factor, because there's got to be a lot of patience as an attorney for since you have to advise your clients when going through this. Typical cases. I know every case is different, but on a typical case, how long are we looking in terms of from beginning to closure sometimes? Right.
If there's no issues, as I said, it could take up to a year. You have to submit the application, you have to be fingerprinted, you have to be interviewed, and then you have to be sworn in. So basically sort of 4 steps that even if there's no problem can take up to a year to complete. It can be a year before you reach that date where you're sworn in.
And what happens for little children? Because people ask about little children being in the process as well.
Right. That's sort of a more complex legal question. There are certain laws in place where if a parent naturalizes and the child is here with status, the child may automatically become a citizen. That is a process we can assist with. It's not at all uncommon where someone will come in, naturalize, we'll take them through the entire process, and the minute they finish, they come back with their child and we help the child with the process. So it's not uncommon that we assist entire families through this immigration process.
Right. And so looking at what's going on right now, the President, his recent State of the Union address, what are you hearing from your clients and those in the immigration community?
Lots of fears, I said. He basically says he wants to end what he calls chain migration, which is actually family migration. And despite what he says, it is not just an alien resident cannot simply bring in a countless number of relatives. There's a specific set of relatives, familiar relations that the government recognizes and allows you to petition for. And even when you do that, there is a calendar that can last anywhere from a year at the least to 12 years to 15 years. So it's not a system that's easily gone through.
All right, and so we tell people if you're going to get involved, you've got to be patient with this process, because this process of immigration is a long one. Anything that you see on the horizon that we really should be taking particular note to?
Well, I know that the Democrats and Republicans are meeting to try to meet on a deal. I think everyone should pay close and careful attention to that, and not just what they say, but the actual details of what the deals are, because that will affect our communities the most.
And so here in the Bronx, obviously you see a lot of people. Do you have any idea what kind of numbers you guys see in terms of taking care of people on a yearly basis?
Oh, on a yearly basis, I think we were trying to run a count, and I think it was in a year we meet with somewhere over 900 people. We have 3 offices that provide immigration assistance, and divided up amongst those offices, we probably served 900 members of the community last year. We'll likely exceed those numbers this year.
So talked about amnesty, because a lot of people are talking about the amnesty, and Republicans are saying things are amnesty for illegal immigrants. Well, let me do that. I'm going to ask the question after I take the break, because they tell me I need to take a break. So I won't let them answer the question. I'll take the break. You come back and ask a question. We'll be right back right after this.
What's on your mind?
Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table.
Well, Thomas, you've got pre-diabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon, too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have pre-diabetes. Big time.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Back with Arturo Lopez, immigration attorney, supervising, I should say supervising attorney for the immigration program at BronxWorks, and walking us through a little bit of the immigration conversation. And as we were talking a little bit before the break, I was getting ready to get into a question when it comes to the issue of immigration. And when we talk about nationally, Republicans, Democrats still trying to work this out. Are you optimistic that at the end of the day that it'll be somewhere in the middle?
Well, with this president, he hasn't shown much willingness to compromise. So, despite the flashes of statements in his brief flashes in his speech about how he wants to work towards compromise, the 4 pillars, as he called them, basically were the same agenda he's always been proposing. So he didn't seem to have indicated he's given much since the year he's been in office.
Mm-hmm. So going forward, obviously there's a lot of work that needs to be done for you as an attorney. How do you deal and how do you make the adjustment for where we are right now?
Well, it calls for a lot of staying on top of what's going on,
exactly.
Reading the new laws, if you have to take classes at the last minute. So you always, it's a field that is always changing, and you always have to stay on top of what's going on, because any day you don't stay, it could mean you're out of the loop in knowledge.
Mm-hmm. And so for your attorneys, how many do you have over at the office?
We have 2 attorneys in our program and 6 paralegals.
Mm. And you said you served last year almost 900 people.
Right, yeah. So we work very hard, very hard.
Yeah, yeah. And so when we talk about DACA and immigration, obviously those are the 2 biggest things that are on the forefront right here. What else might we be missing, or what other conversations should we be having that we should be paying attention to?
Well, even DACA, even if we do create this pathway to citizenship, what people have to understand that it's not a free handout. What they're calling a pathway is basically, from what I'm reading, a 10-year process.
Mm-hmm.
So these people who came here as children, have grown up here, and still are not citizens, would essentially have to, even if everything goes their way with this proposal now, would still have to wait another 10 years before they're allowed to become citizens. So you're talking about people maybe becoming citizens in their 40s.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the process. And as I said, it's not a handout. It's a very long, complex process, and they're willing to go through it because they care about this country so much and want to stay here and contribute. And these are the people we're dealing with.
I was in the airport not too long ago recently and actually witnessed firsthand a deportation.
Mm-hmm.
And the terror and the pain of families. Are we seeing the enforcement continue to increase?
Yes. That's a simple answer to that. Yes. Enforcement is being stepped up. There are a lot more investigation, a lot more of going out into the community, and a lot more cases. Whereas President Obama directed the enforcement agency to focus on criminals, people that are a danger and that no one wants here, immigrants and citizens alike. The enforcement agency now is basically just indiscriminately sort of targeting the community. There's an issue with enforcement being in courts. We worry about crime victims reporting crimes because they may be scared that they may be picked up at the courthouse. It's an issue that's ongoing. We're worried about women in abusive relationships having to be afraid of reporting their abusers. So it's a policy that creates more crime rather than actually solves it.
Right. I know the big talk is about the courthouse. Where are we with that?
There's still no official withdrawal of ICE from the courthouse. They still have the ability to enter the courthouses to pick up individuals.
So they can enter the courthouse. Can they enter the courtroom?
That is up to the judge's discretion, but usually they'll just wait immediately outside the courtroom. And so when the person exits, they'll pick them up there at the door.
And we've seen plenty of cases of that where that's actually transpired.
Yes. Yes.
Now, what do people do to stay alert, get more information? I know you got your place to get resources, but give the public some places that they can get their resources from.
Well, our website, BronxWorks, has all of our information on how to make an appointment. There's some other websites out there that can provide information on news and things that are going on. The New York Immigration Coalition has information on what is going on in immigration and also information on how to be active for within the community and for demonstrations. So those would be good websites to check out.
All right. Arturo Lopez, our guest in the studio. Thank you for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you.
All righty, Arturo Lopez. As we wrap up this edition of Perspectives, I'm Daren Jaime telling you, listen, stay connected to Perspectives as we get into the year 2018. As the immigration continues to roll out, we'll have more guests talking about this particular matter that weighs very hard, or very heavy, I should say, on the hearts and minds of many people here in the borough of the Bronx. We have a very diverse backgrounds and community, and a lot of people are literally caught in the balance when it comes to immigration. So please stay connected to us here. We'll bring you more information as it becomes available, and we'll unpack it as best as we possibly can so that way you can get all that you need to get. For all of us here on the Center of Perspectives, I'm Daren Jaime saying take care. Until next time we meet, stay safe, share your perspective with somebody else. You never know, it just might make a difference in someone else's life. Take care.
Let 'em know.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
Express what's on your mind. What's on your mind?
Let 'em know. Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decision.
We are together. And for the last 20 years, we have been building on a vision to share our views, our voices on our channels. We are the Bronx. We are BronxNet.